Laurel Steward with the news from here in Taiwan and around the world. There's been speculation that a reported delay in President Lai Ching-te's August travel plans, which may have included US stopovers, is tied to ongoing tariff talks between Washington and Beijing. But US officials now say the two aren't connected. Cadence Caranta has been following this story and joins us from the TaiwanPlus newsroom. Cadence, what are officials saying?
Yeah, so the U.S. Treasury Secretary was actually asked about this after concluding 2 days of tariff talks with Chinese economic officials in Sweden. And he actually denied that Lai's pushing his plan back had anything to do with U.S.-China trade talks or the U.S. wanting to smooth relations over with Beijing amid these fragile tariff talks. This is what he said.
We are very careful to keep trade and national security separate. So the Taiwanese president's movements had nothing to do with our talks.
And on the same day, the U.S. State Department was also asked about this, if Washington had anything to do with this trip being pushed back. And they actually denied that this trip had been canceled at all. This is what they said.
Taiwan has not announced any travel plans for President Lai. So that is generally a hypothetical now. I know it's been in the news. There's been a lot of questions and a lot of suppositions here that have happened, but I can say that it is a hypothetical at this point. There have been no plans, travel plans for the president. There's been, as a result, nothing canceled. I can tell you, though, a reiteration that transits by high-level Taiwan officials, including presidents, are fully consistent with our long-standing policy and practice. This has not changed.
And it's important to note that this trip was never actually confirmed by Taiwan's government, that Lai was going to be visiting Taiwan's diplomatic allies in Latin America, but this was widely reported by both international and local media. And several outlets then reported that the plan was pushed back because the U.S. had denied Lai permission to transit through the U.S. In New York on the way to those countries due to objections from China. And it's worth noting that Taiwanese presidents often make these sorts of stopovers or transits in the U.S., and that this was widely expected to happen this time as well. Taiwan and the U.S. don't have official diplomatic ties, so Taiwan can't make official diplomatic visits to the U.S., but they have been allowed to make these sorts of stopovers when visiting other diplomatic allies. And this gives them a chance, experts have told me, to, I guess, have senior-level meetings with high-level U.S. officials and to get media publicity around U.S.-Taiwan relations, which is very important. And the Washington Post actually recently also reported that Taiwan's defense minister was also supposed to visit the U.S. in June, but that those meetings were canceled also due to objections from China. And so all of this has experts a little bit worried and questioning about if this means that U.S. policy towards Taiwan is changing or if they're softening their policy towards China. But it doesn't look like we're going to get any official confirmation from either government about what's going on behind the scenes. And experts are telling me that we can't look to one specific incident or two specific incidents to tell us that this policy is changing. We have to wait and see if this becomes a pattern.
Thanks, Cadence. That was Cadence Caranta reporting from our newsroom. Taiwan is seeing a surge in Chinese military activity amid discussions over why President Lai Ching-te's reported Latin America trip was pushed back. The Defense Ministry says it spotted 33 Chinese military aircraft and drones near Taiwan early on Wednesday. 23 of those aircraft entered Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ. This area isn't Taiwan's airspace, but acts as a buffer zone for defensive purposes. Taiwan says it's monitoring the situation. An international organization that aims to address challenges posed by China is set to hold its first gala in Taipei in August. The Interparliamentary Alliance on China is a group of legislators from around the world who work to combat China's efforts to erode democratic institutions. It says the Taipei Gala is a show of support for Taiwan at a time of growing uncertainty. The event is scheduled for August 26th and will bring together lawmakers from Taiwan and other countries around the world. The International Monetary Fund has updated its predictions for global growth, giving a rosier outlook. It now projects 3% growth for 2025 and 3.1% for 2026. But those numbers could change.
Projections remain about 0.2 percentage point below our pre-April 2nd forecasts, indicating that the trade tensions are hurting the global economy.
Lower tariff rates compared to those announced in April and a weaker US dollar are the main drivers for the slightly improved numbers. And global inflation continues to fall. It is projected to reach 4.2% for 2025 and keep dropping to 3.6% in 2026. But the IMF warns that a breakdown in trade talks or renewed protectionism could weaken international growth and fuel inflation in some countries. China and the US may continue to hold off on implementing tariffs following a meeting in Stockholm.
双方将继续推动美方已暂停的对等关税24%部分，以及中方反制措施，继续如期展期。
This is the third attempt since April that the trade partners have tried to work out a deal. Both sides walked back from imposing triple-digit tariffs on each other in May. Financial markets could face turmoil without an agreement, yet the US says an extension past August 12th is not certain.
With respect to a potential pause, we're going to head back to Washington, D.C., and we're going to talk to the president about whether that's something that he wants to do.
Without a deal or an extension by the August 12th deadline, tariffs could, quote, boomerang back up, according to US officials. The ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia, reached earlier this week, seems to be holding. But where do China and the US fit into negotiations around halting the conflict? John Van Trieste spoke to former US Ambassador to Myanmar, Derek Mitchell, to find out.
What do you make of US President Trump's willingness to use tariffs as a tool to push for a ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia?
Well, he loves tariffs. He thinks it's the magic weapon of that can be used on anything, it seems. But I mean, look, people use whatever leverage you can, I suppose, to try to end conflict. In the past, we've used political means, and this president in the United States decides to use economic means, assuming that is good leverage on these countries if they care in the middle of tariff negotiations to put their economic interests above some of these very deep-seated national issues.
Well, this part of the world is a place that China is very interested in. It's sort of in their backyard. What do you make of U.S. intervention and its significance for the region and maybe even for Taiwan?
Well, I mean, the United States has always intervened on issues in quiet ways, typically. I think President Trump tends to take a much more bombastic approach to things. So he took full credit for this, which I think is too much. But, quiet diplomacy, phone calls to leaders, encouragement, diplomatic engagement to try to lower the tensions, that always helps. I think it can be helpful. I think the Chinese, again, they do the same because it's in their interest and in their neighborhood, and they have good relations with both Cambodia and Thailand. I think it's a question mark for the region where they do want to be responsible for their own affairs. They don't want to be coerced by great powers. They don't want great powers interfering in their internal affairs.
This conflict between Thailand and Cambodia is long-standing and very emotive for both sides. Do you think the pressure from things like tariffs or from neighboring countries like China and Malaysia will be enough to put a lid back on this very deeply sensitive issue for people on both sides?
Well, it remains to be seen. They've got to work it out between the two of them, obviously. It's a very deep-seated nationalist issue for both of them. There's a lot of resentment that goes back decades. It's not just a single point. It's along the border in many different areas. So they have to have communications and settle this. They do have a boundary commission. I don't think this ends things, but conflict is the worst time to settle disputes. You at least have to stop the conflict and then let cooler heads prevail, and hopefully there'll be dialogue to get to some kind of lasting, sustained, stable settlement of some kind.
That was former US Ambassador to Myanmar, Derek Mitchell. Taiwan is among the countries issuing tsunami alerts after a magnitude 8.8 earthquake struck off Russia's far east coast. The massive quake hit near the Kamchatka Peninsula on Wednesday morning, triggering widespread tsunami warnings and evacuations across the Pacific region. A 4-meter wave inundated a port town in Russia's far east. Alerts have also been issued in the US states of Alaska and Hawaii, as well as Guam and Micronesia. In northern Japan, residents have been told to evacuate coastal areas. Taiwan's weather officials expected waves of up to 1 meter to reach its coasts this afternoon, but no damage has been reported so far. Over the past decade, 30 firefighters have died in the line of duty. To better protect these first responders, robots are being deployed across the country. Our reporter Sandy Chi looks at how these robots help keep first responders safe in hazardous situations.
When the alarms sound, firefighters spring into action, racing against time and sometimes into burning buildings, putting their lives at risk to keep the public safe. But now new technology is helping take on some of the most dangerous tasks.
可以代替我们就是来从事一些比方说像一个近距离必须要救援的一个灾害现场，我们可以先利用我们的救灾机器人，先到达现场，先去了解状况，然后以方便我们后续看说要调派什么样的救灾器材，或是要怎么样编组我们的救灾人员，这都有助于我们在救灾的过程中会比较完善。
These robots entered service in 2023. The same year, 4 first responders died in a factory fire in southern Taiwan.
我们就开始在考虑，是不是因为应该要加一些救灾机器人进来做辅助，可以造成消防人员尽量零伤害、零死亡，有效的帮助我们消防人员进行前部的勘察动作。
The robots have sensors to spot risky situations before firefighters enter.
像我身后的这一台，它有搭配热显像仪，还有搭配气体探测器。那它可以先行的先去到达现场，然后来面对高温以及易爆的现场，或者是有毒或是缺氧的环境，让现场的资讯能够先 pass 到我们的控制台，然后来回报给救灾指挥官，可以大大的来提升我们的救灾的安全保障以及效率。
Earlier this year, a chemical fire in Chiayi destroyed a firefighting robot, a loss that in different circumstances could have been a firefighter's life. And fire officials say Taiwan's many factories and makeshift buildings are hazards that make it dangerous for firefighters.
铁皮屋火灾最危险就是它的热效能热辐射，那只要一发生火灾，铁皮就会坍塌这时候如果有消防救灾机器人的话，它对我们来说是一个很大的帮助。
And now, more than 140 of these robots are working across Taiwan, most of them in New Taipei and Kaohsiung, where many factories pose a fire hazard. Still, these robots have limitations.
以这台电动驱动的机器人来说，基本上只要是蓄电池，大家都知道就是会有续航力的问题，所以后续未来可以朝向说可能是电量、电力的扩充，又或者是像我们充电时间的缩短，这都有助于说后续我们救灾机器人可以再次的投入到我们的救灾现场。
加工水，加工水。
In the years since their introduction, these robots have proven their usefulness. And with improvements on the way, Taiwan's first responders will soon have even better tools as they work to put out fires and save lives. Chris Ma, Patrick Chen, Alec MacDonald, and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, let's take a look at some highlights from Stage 3 of the Tour de France Femme. I'm Laurel Stewart. Take care and see you next time.